All right. You guys done over there?
Worry about yourself.
It is Blair and Barker for a Thursday. The Blue Jays are off today. They will be back in action tomorrow, the first of 3 games against the Atlanta Braves. My Braves. It'll be Kevin Gossman against Max Fried.
Don't you hate Atlanta?
Jose, I don't like the city. It sucks. Jose Barrios against Spencer Schwellenbach.
He's good.
I just keep, and whenever I say that name, do you remember the Saturday Night Live clip, the Sweaty Balls clip? Anyhow, Spencer Schwellenbach, I think you get the same thing. And Yariel Rodriguez takes on Chris Sale, who is continuing to build a case for the Cy Young Award. The Braves are currently a half game up on Barker's Mets for the third and final wild card spot. And we will be joined by one of Barker's favorite people in the game, John Gibbons, the bench coach of the New York Mets, former Blue Jays manager. He will be along to what?
You think he still likes you?
I don't really care. There's no reason.
Do you think so?
There's no reason he shouldn't.
Out of sight, out of mind, buddy. That's what I think.
Yeah, there's no reason he shouldn't.
No reason at all. No.
Jeff Passan will join us. What?
Nothing.
Jeff Passan will join us. And Brandon Gaudin, he is the TV play-by-play voice with the Braves and the MLB on Fox. He will be along to take a look at the Braves. Congratulations to friend of the show, Matt Chapman.
How about that?
6 years, $151 million extension with
that's
the San
why the
Francisco
Giants
Giants.
stink. that's the yeah.
It all turned out well for him after everybody claiming that he was going to take a haircut in free agency last year.
He did take a haircut.
Well, the hair grew back fast. 6 years and $151 million to play baseball in San Francisco and live close to home. Well done, Matt Chapman.
Yeah, boy. Whopping. He ain't got an 800 OPS.
And that will take that takes one of the 2 marquee free
Giants.
agent third basemen off the market.
Marquee.
The other is Alex Bregman. And
You seem to think it starts there for Bregman.
well, he's the only third baseman on the market right now, I think.
So?
Which is going to be interesting there are a couple of teams that are looking at third. Now, somebody said ESPN said Eugenio Suarez might be on the market. I think he's got an opt-out, or there's a team opt-out or something like that. I mean, who the hell knows with the Seattle Mariners? Who knows what they're...
I mean, if you're a third baseman and you're decent at it, this might be the right year to do that.
I
Give
would
opportunity
think so.
to maximize your money. Probably not going to come around every year for him.
Yeah.
Take advantage of it while you can. I mean, they're dropping money on dudes that Matt Chapman's worth $25.5 million a year. Come on, man. Really?
Well, I mean,
seriously, that's why you can't take. That's why you can't take the Giants serious. I mean, that's it right there. Well, ain't no whatever. That's why they ain't real good. That's why. I mean,
it seems to me to be basically the going rate for third baseman.
Is it?
I can't get.
I ain't getting fired up. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
good for him. Way to go, Matt.
You are fired up. And once again, you will be wrong when you make your free agent forecast.
That's not really a forecast.
Everybody,
you asked me numerous times of what I would spend, and I said I'm not giving Matt Chapman $25 a year for no amount of years. That's not that happening. I mean, I can't. How do you give 20? If you're going to give $25 million to a dude, that dude better drop 30 and 100 and be really good at defense. He's really good at defense. Got a 770 OPS. I mean, more power to you. If that's where you want to spend your money, go for it. It's called fourth place. I'm saying.
I think he's second among all third basemen in WAR.
Okay. All right.
That includes your defense.
Does it? More defense than it is hitting. I mean, I'm a fan of his.
No, you're not.
Not $25 million.
Clearly, you're upset that he.
It's not upset. You're trying to cause a fight with
player
me
this year.
Wow.
22 home runs.
Wow.
His OPS plus is 121.
More power to you, bud. It's called fourth place.
All right. What do you want to talk about then?
Blue Jays, how good they're going to be down the stretch here in the next 22 games.
Go ahead. Start.
If I had to ask you, what would be 3 things you're looking at the next 22 games? What would you say to me? 3 things.
The calendar,
Come on.
the end of the season.
Come on.
Oh,
We still have to work, even though the Blue Jays are done. So come on.
what would be the 3 things I'm
The
looking
3
at?
things. Like, you can look at an individual, you can look at a manager, you can look at anything.
Honestly,
Or you can just come on here and act like that. And,
there's not much.
yeah.
What are we going to see? Well,
I mean, I'd like to see Dalton Varsho continue to do the things he's using a little bit more of the entire field.
Yeah,
That'd
but
be
you know
nice.
what?
Like,
The thing
be
with-
the everyday second baseman. That's kind of
The
cool.
thing with Dalton Varsho
Yariel
is
Rodriguez looking for a step forward. Like, there's 2 good reasons. Like, that's your future going into next year. You need a couple of dudes, surprises that you're not paying a ton of money to. There you go. There's 2 of them.
I think we know what Dalton Varsho is.
Not really. We've
some-
never seen Dalton Varsho hitting homers to left center field.
I'm
or
sure,
center field.
I'm sure we have at some other point in the 2 years he's been here. We just don't remember it. I mean, Dalton Varsho is what he is. That's not going to change. He's not going to roll in next year and be hitting 280. So let's forget about that. What do I need to see?
That's not how I asked the question.
I mean, I would like to see. I'd like to see Bo come back and play just to see where he is. Yariel Rodriguez, I got to tell you the truth. At this point, I'm not certain I want to see much more of Yariel Rodriguez. I think I know what he is for next year. I'd like to. I am intrigued by Addison Barger. I would love to see him get a run of games at third base. That's probably the guy I'm most interested in. Second base, I think they'll probably figure that out. But yeah, I want to see what Addison Barger is, and more importantly, I want to see what they think he is by the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, again, if he makes your team next year, you haven't done your job in the offseason. So you just spent 3 minutes talking about a guy that's probably not going to make a team next year.
I think he's probably maybe your most tradable guy, and you're going to have to make a trade. I want to see him finish the season strongly. And I mean, you asked me what I wanted to see. That's what I want to see. Is Will Wagner going to make the team? I don't know. Joey Loperfido. Joey Loperfido. I mean, I'd kind of like to see what that's all about. But yeah, no, I think the 2 guys this year who have changed people's opinion of them the most are Bowden Francis and Addison Barger as we sit here right now. I think if you had said at the start of the year, hey, Bowden Francis could go into next year with a lock in the starting rotation, you'd go, nope. If you'd said to people in spring training that Addison Barger looks like he might be able to do more than simply survive in the major leagues as a hitter, people might kind of shrug. I'm interested in that. I don't know where the future is going to hold for Addison Barger, but I find him the most intriguing position player because he's got a ton of power and he's left-handed. And he's got an arm that'll play someplace in the field. I just, I can't carry him next year if he's going to be hitting 205 with 12 home runs or whatever. So I want to see that. Yeah, Yariel Rodriguez, don't you kind of know what he is?
Not really.
Are you going to see anything over the next 3 or 4 starts that changes your mind?
They're going to be looking for it.
What's he going to do?
Be more efficient, command 3 pitches consistently, have a repeatable delivery. I mean, they gave him $32 million not to be a long man in the bullpen.
Well,
they're going to be searching for
maybe they
the
made
next 3 starts.
Maybe they made a mistake.
Man, you jumped that real quick. Like, I mean, it's not like they got a plethora of dudes standing in line to be the number 5 guy at the big league level. They don't. They got 4 guys.
I would like to see Jake Bloss make a couple of starts up here too.
I mean, Jake Bloss is a location guy.
I still want to see him make
a
couple
location
of starts
guy.
up
Like
here.
it's not that's sort of that's an unknown. You don't know what you're getting. Again, there's urgency.
Yeah.
Like they want to get off to a good start. They're,
we say that every year.
No, not really.
Yeah, you did this year.
I did not.
Yeah, we said this year that if they didn't get off to a good start, people would lose their jobs. I mean, we did. We just said that. They didn't get off to a good start. They didn't get off to a good start, and nobody lost their job.
That's because the general manager ran over the manager last year. That's why. That's the reason why we said that people are going to lose their jobs. And
they didn't.
You're exactly right.
See,
it's not going to happen this year either, sounds like.
I mean, you're going to have to define urgency to me. I don't know. I would presume if they go out and make a couple of trades in the off season and they come in with a better lineup and they get off to a slow start, then maybe. Yeah, I mean, there has to be. Look,
so it's up to the front
urgency.
Office,
The urgency. The urgency in this organization should always have been based on Bo and Vladdy's service time. That should have been the urgency. The urgency was to do something while you had those guys together reasonably cheap. That defined your urgency. And did you detect urgency this offseason, the way they went about doing things?
Nope.
I didn't even last offseason. I didn't detect any urgency last offseason. I ended up with Brandon Belt and Kevin Kiermaier.
Yep.
So, yeah. I mean, you asked me what I want. Those are the things. Those are the things I want to see. Those are the things I want to see. Because I'm not certain Will Wagner, as good as he is, I'm not certain he solves the position issue for me. Addison Barger, I think, can, bad pun, he can barge his way into a spot in this team because I'd play him in right field. You know, we're getting to the point where George Springer's contract is basically dead money. To me, next year, George Springer is a guy who's on the team, hits sixth, and isn't guaranteed to play every day. If I've got a left-handed bat that can do some damage, I'm playing him over George Springer because the contract has ceased to be an issue. The contract has ceased to be an issue. So that's why I'm saying Addison Barger.
When's the last time he played right field?
I don't know, 2 weeks ago. He's playing third base now. And I don't know how you feel about it, but are you going to be paying attention to how many games Vladdy plays at third versus how many games he plays at first? Like, do you think, because clearly him playing third base is an option next year, do you think we could read anything into, how many games are left? 22? Let's say that he plays
10.
Yeah, 10 games that
he'll DH a bunch too.
So you wouldn't read anything into how many games he plays.
That's the one thing about this front office. I have no idea how to read them. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Like they could play anybody anywhere and you'd have no idea. Like, why is Horowitz not playing second ever again? Like, it
seems like they don't think he can be a third or a second baseman.
There you go. Like, it's just odd. All of a sudden it just stopped, came to an end. Why is that?
I mean, I think the defensive analytics weren't.
How do you?
Weren't good.
I don't even know how you read it. Catch the ball right at you, get hit. I don't know how. No, up and back, side to side.
When you
first move, I don't know how you're reading that. Like I'm
not. Listen,
not you. I'm saying how
because I play him at second base.
Me too. Like
I have no problem playing him at second
because he's left-handed and he get hit.
Yeah.
I mean, why overthink it?
I also think that offensively he profiles as a second baseman more than a first baseman.
Yeah, and they're so good at sticking the dude where he needs to be stuck that 95% of the time the ball's going to be hit right there. They are very good at it. How many rockets have you seen hit right at dudes where they ain't moving side to side? It is right at them because they're so good at reading it and knowing if you throw this there, that dude's going to hit the ball right there. Go stand over there. And most of the time, they're exactly right. I just don't know how they come up with these.
Well, I'm also going to say this, too, because this is something that I was thinking about last night. And we're thinking about things. Like, not everything's a mess. Like, not everything is bad. And I was thinking of this last night. And this gets to your point about positioning. Somebody knows what they're doing on that coaching staff because they are a very good defensive team. And they're still a very good defensive team, even though, one, they're playing a lot of kids or younger kids. They're playing a lot of guys without major league experience. And two, they're playing a bunch of guys at different positions.
Yeah,
that says something to me.
See, I think the rotation's good, that they know dude throws here, hits his spot, ball will be hit here. That's what I think. I think they're really good in front offices. Most teams are.
But you know what I mean?
This is where they go stand.
If you look at a team and said, okay, in August and September, we're going to be seeing a bunch of guys with no major league service time and every one of them was going to be playing two or three positions, not 3 or 4, but 2 or 3 positions. You go, this could be a mess. That's one thing that I think needs to be stressed about this organization. And the reason I'm saying that is, see, I think they're so good defensively now that you can sacrifice some of that defense. And I wish I'd kind of thought that last offseason. I wish I'd hammered the drum more and said, you're so good defensively, sacrifice some of that defense to get offense in here. And I think that's where we are with this team. I find that interesting that they can move all those guys around and they don't seem to miss a beat defensively. Now, maybe their numbers have decreased slightly. There have been some misplays in the infield, but doesn't seem to me as if there's been a major drop off. I think of when I think of the Blue Jays and mistakes, I think of base running errors. I don't necessarily think of defensive.
See,
errors.
I think it's easier when they're hitting and they're hitting some home runs and they're slugging.
I agree with you on that.
That what they do defensively, who cares? Like, raise your hand if you're a fan and you go, man, why is that dude not catching the ball that he has to go 7 feet to his left and throw crossfire to the first baseman and he misses his target by 3 feet?
You're
Nobody
missing
cares.
the point, though. I'm saying that is a good thing, that all of this has gone on and that they have still been able to play good defense.
Yeah, I think that's why it's easy
really
for me.
good.
I think it's still, again, that now you know exactly what you need to go out and get. I think that even furthers my point that I've been trying to make for almost 2 years now.
No, it does, because you're good enough defensively that you can sacrifice some guys and you move guys around, you're still going to be okay.
There you go. I mean, Vladdy's a good enough athlete. Barger's a good enough athlete. Clement obviously is a good enough athlete.
That was the guy I was going to
Jimenez is an obvious good enough athlete. Like, they're athletes now on the field.
Yeah, that was the guy I was going to next.
Turner's not an athlete.
Let's say you make a whole bunch of moves in the offseason, or you make a whole bunch of things, and you end up with a better team, a better lineup, but you got to give Ernie Clement more playing time someplace. I'm okay with that.
I mean, it's just, again, where he's hitting in the order and
that's what I
how
said.
Many other positions you're doing that to.
You're not going to be able.
That's the point.
That's what I'm saying.
Like, fine and dandy, but it's just it's going to be hard to have 3 or 4 guys on your team that are platooning at certain positions, hitting second, cleanup, fifth, sixth. Like, that's you think you're going to win in the American League East and try and make a serious run.
They can be
in the wild card doing that. Good luck.
They can be in the team. They just can't be starting. I have no problem if Loperfito's on the team next year.
Loperfito's shown you enough that he can sit over there for a couple of days, come off the bench, and hit velocity. Good luck. That's the thing, right? Are these guys everyday players? Are these guys good enough mechanically and mentally? I've tried this very hard. It's the hardest thing doing baseball in my mind is sit over there for a couple of days, come off and look like you've actually held a bat in your hand before facing a pitcher. It's the hardest thing to do in baseball. Like, you have really no idea what you're doing up there. And you got to have experience, and you got to have a real mindset of everything's connected. I've mastered it. All I got to do now is try and get a decent pitch to hit. Let Perfito do that right now today. That's what I'm saying, right? That you got to make up your mind quicker. Your evaluations have to be on point, and they got to be quick. Whether we think there's a sense of urgency, I think there should have been urgency 2 years ago. But
if only somebody had just said that. That's why I said there should have been a sense of urgency 2 years ago. That's why for 2 years we've come on and said sense of urgency. I don't know.
So you're saying we should stop saying it because
no, I just don't know if there is.
Yeah, I don't think there is either. The only time we're going to know real quick because there's some good free agents, and I would think most of them good free agents are not going to stick around long. Teams are going to be interested. There are going to be quite a few teams interested in dudes that can thump. The Blue Jays going to have to be in the mix real quick. We're going to find out if there's any urgency or not.
I will say this. There are 5 big-name free agents that are Scott Boras clients. The free agent market will drag out the way it did this year. It will again.
Let's hope not.
It will again. The only thing that I think...
Maybe players learned something from last year.
I mean, the only way I can see that changing is if Juan Soto goes real fast, and that's not going to happen. I think Juan Soto's the example of a guy who the longer he waits.
Yeah, I like Christian
more money he's
Walker
gonna
and Santander is probably not going to be in the same market as Soto's going to be. There's going to be a limited amount of teams that want to drop what he's asking for. So if I'm a good team and I want a certain number and I can't afford the Sotos of the world,
But not if there are all it takes.
that's what I said.
all
The
it takes-
evaluation, you got to be quick with them.
All it takes are 3 or
real.
4 teams to be interested in Soto. And if you're Scott Boras, you play them all off against each other. Only one of those teams is
Yeah,
going to get Juan Soto.
that for me has nothing to do with the other free agents because the other free agents are not Juan Soto. I get what you're saying,
But if teams
but if
don't
I'm
get
another
Juan,
team,
if teams don't get Juan Soto, they're going to double. They're going to look at other.
it gets
at other
back.
players.
It gets back to that Chris Bassett talk that he had on the Chris Rose show. Is we had one dude in mind. There was no pivot. That's what I say. You got to be quicker. You got to know what you know when you're going in.
He meant.
Yeah, well, exactly what it meant. Exactly that
There
they
was only-
didn't have another option.
There's no other option to Shohei Ohtani. We went over this. Who's the other
Yeah, it's
option?
not-
Cody
what-
Bellinger? Is he the other option?
Well, I think he's thinking it's better than what they brought in.
Okay.
That I think is what he's trying to say.
Really?
I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying.
There was no. Yeah.
I'm just saying that he feels like, and I'm sure he is not the only person that feels that way, that they only had one name in mind. And if they didn't get that name, it was the Kiermaiers and the IKFs and the Turners of the world. So everything I think you just said is exactly right. And we will see if there's any absolute urgency when it comes to the first couple of weeks of the offseason or month.
Yeah.
Because we know everybody that's a Blue Jays fan knows what they need.
Yep.
It's not guessing.
We've got Jays tickets to give away to see the Jays and Mets at the Rogers Center. We'll do that
Mets
later
are
on in the
good.
show.
Jeff. They got a
They
little something to play for, right? I mean, that's fun.
Yep. No,
Yeah,
it
it
is. It'll be good.
Both New York teams are in a dogfight, which is kind of cool to
Yeah, the
talk
Yankees. Clay Holmes, man, 11 blowing saves.
What is that word you didn't like me saying yesterday?
Creative. And what did Aaron Boone? I laughed. I thought of you because Aaron Boone in his post game said we're going to have to get creative. And I'm the guy that was sitting there and saying, you know who gets creative? You know who gets creative? The Milwaukee Brewers get creative. That's who gets creative. Teams with a big payroll don't have to get creative. But I would just caution you against signing up Aaron Boone as an ally. I'm not certain you want to do that.
What's he going to say? Throw his players
but I
under
mean,
the
not-
bus and say we've forgotten about you, Clay Holmes?
There's now, we'll talk to Jeff Passan about this. But I mean, there's talk now about Luis Gill maybe going into the pen.
I mean, that's filth. It's just that inning. How do you prepare for it? Like it's a different animal, right? We've had people gone that's tried it.
I mean, the only thing I would say is if they want to do that, at least they've got some wiggle room now in the postseason race. It would be different if they were
Young guy's been hurt before who's going to overthrow in the ninth inning. Like, how's that going to go? You think?
slow heartbeat, Yankee Stadium.
Does he
listen,
have
I'm
all of
with
that
you.
in the ninth inning? I don't
I'm
know.
with you.
It's interesting, but boy, he can stuff you to death, which is exactly, I think, what you need in that ninth inning. And it would make it easier for Booney to make the right decision, right? Can't be the easiest thing when you're expected to win a World Series and you don't have the
you
pieces
seen Clay
down there.
Holmes? What has happened?
Yeah, I think the velocities went down a tick and it's just not moving. It's running instead of sinking. When it runs, it stays on the barrel. When
I
it
watched him the
sinks,
other
it
night,
gets
and it's-
off the barrel. And he's not a punch-out guy.
No.
That's what you need. You need a dude in that ninth inning who can punch out everybody, lefty or righty.
No,
Blue Jays got that?
That's really.
That's what I thought about that whenever I was thinking about Clay. Should I say
Brandon
that?
Gaudin is the TV play-by-play voice of the Atlanta Braves and the MLB on Fox. The Jays are off today. They open a 3-game series against my Braves tomorrow. We'll talk to Brandon Gaudin next. It's Blair and Barker.
You need a hug?
No, I'm fine. On Sportsnet 590, The Fan at Sportsnet. All right, the Blue Jays have tonight off. They will open a 3-game series in Atlanta tomorrow against the Atlanta Braves. And they will face quite the run of pitching. Max Fried, Spencer Schwellenbach, and Chris Sale. Chris Sale, 15-3 with an ERA of 2.58. This will be a good test for the Blue Jays, to say the least. The Braves are currently a half game up on the Mets for the third and final wild card spot. they are doing so despite the fact that they have had a run of injuries almost from the get-go.
Crazy, right?
Brandon Gaudin is the TV play-by-play voice of the Atlanta Braves. Brandon Gaudin, sorry. And he joins us on Blair and Barker. Brandon, thanks so much for joining us today. A very quick question for you. Given all their injuries, are the Braves looking at this situation right now as being disappointing that they are only a half game up? Or are they looking at this and saying, man, it could be a lot worse given the way the injuries have multiplied?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both because they came into the season with kind of World Series or bust expectations. That was the mantra in the clubhouse down in spring training. But those injuries that you mentioned that started with Spencer Strider, who was a potential Cy Young candidate, and then the reigning NL MVP Ronald Acuna Jr. going down with an ACL injury, those were two big blows, and then Braves couldn't have imagined that would just be the tip of the iceberg. They've lost 4 more All-Stars over the last 3 months. So it has been one thing after another. So, look, the fan base, I think, is by and large frustrated with this season. I think inside that clubhouse they realized 2 things. One, given all the injuries, to be 13 games over 500 and in the playoffs right now, that's a pretty good thing. They also realized that their schedule down the stretch is pretty favorable. They have a lot of home games. 15 of the remaining 23 are at home, and it's a pretty soft schedule. So I think all things considered, given what has faced the Braves this year, I think they're in a pretty good spot.
Brandon, how important is the leadoff hitter for the Braves because of who hits behind the leadoff hitter? And Olsen, who obviously, I was looking that up the last 33 games, got an OPS of 949. He's hitting homers. He's driving in runs. Obviously, Ozuna's fighting for a triple crown. Like, it looks to me like the top of the rotation because of who, or the lineup because of who's not in it. That leadoff hitter is very important. Who's going to be the consistent leadoff hitter, and how important is that spot?
Yeah, well, a name familiar to you guys, Whit Merrifield, was in that spot. The Phillies released him in the middle of July because he was struggling. Braves had an injury to their all-star second baseman, Ozzie Albies, so they went and picked up Whit Merrifield, and he's been fantastic. Now, he did get hit by a pitch 2 nights ago, and so he was out last night, out tonight. He should be back in the lineup tomorrow. So it'll either be Whit Merrifield or Michael Harris. Michael Harris, the center fielder, has a little bit more pop in the bat, and I think he's not because of the pop in the bat, but I think all around, I think he's probably the go-to leadoff hitter for the Braves. But there will be times, I think, when there's a lefty on the mound, since Michael Harris is a lefty batter, that they might move Michael Harris down to the 6th spot in the order and lead off Whit Merrifield. But I think Brian Snitker, the manager, feels like with either one of those guys in the top spot in the order, he feels pretty good.
Where does Jorge Soler fit in the lineup? And I know he's recently been struggling. It seems to me like he's starting to maybe turn the corner. Is it pressure? Is it expectations? You know, obviously he's been on a World Series winning team, but he's brought over there to help carry a team back to that point. What's going on with him?
Yeah, he's been struggling until last night. He had a really nice RBI hit right back up the middle. Look, he came over in 2021 at the trade deadline and helped the Braves win that World Series, was the World Series MVP that year. The Braves got him this season at the trade deadline, again, this time from the Giants, hoping that he would rekindle some of that magic. Brian Snitker has said time and time again that Jorge Soler has not forgotten how to hit. He's just going through a patch that pretty much every hitter goes through at some point during the season. Unfortunately for Jorge Soler, it's been over these last 3 weeks. But they're going to continue to plug him into right field. They're going to continue to put him second in the lineup before Ozuna and before Matt Olson. They like that spot for him, and they think that he'll produce here down the stretch.
Now, Brandon, I know that their starting pitching has been awfully good lately. I think Brave starters have allowed no more than 3 runs in each of their last, if I read the notes correctly, they're the last 23 games. Obviously, Chris Sale very much a part of that. What's been the biggest surprise to you and to the Braves about Chris Sale?
Just that he's able to regain the form that he had back from 2012 to 2019 when he made 7 straight All-Star games. You know, from 2020 through last year with Boston, he had injury after injury, frustration after frustration. Okay, so now he turns 35. The Red Sox say, we're going to part ways with him. The Braves get him for next to nothing in a trade for a guy named Vaughn Grissom, who could be a great player down the road, but has struggled this year mightily. And then Chris Sale regains his form, and he's now the leading candidate to win the Cy Young in the National League. So I think just the whole story has been a surprise. But once you get to know Chris Sale, and I've gotten to know him this year, you realize that guy is as competitive as anybody in Major League Baseball. And he did not want the story of his Major League career to be, well, after 2019, he really petered out and he never became what he once was. He was not going to let that happen. He was bound and determined to get back on the right track. And he's done it this year. He has been absolutely tremendous from day one.
You think this is Brian Snitker's best managerial job as a Braves manager?
There's an argument for it, that's for sure. I don't think he'll win Manager of the Year unless the Braves would just go on an unbelievable run and somehow overtake the Phillies in the East, which isn't likely because they're 7 games back at this point. But I think that there is certainly an argument. If it's not his best, it's right up there. And that's saying something because they've won 6 straight NL East titles. So he's done a magnificent job year in and year out. But given all the injuries to all of those All-Stars that we talked about, the cards were certainly stacked against him and the Braves this year, but they've just found a way to get it done in a lot of close games, right? And there's still a long way to go. They're not in the playoffs for sure, but you like the way they're trending. They've been playing better here over the last couple of weeks.
Other than the strength of schedule, and when you look at it, the Mets strength of schedule is, it's pretty daunting, certainly compared to the Braves. But other than strength of schedule, Brandon, what do you think will ultimately tell the tale of how this race turns out?
I think it's going to be a 3-game series that the Mets have here at Truist Park in Atlanta the last week of the season. The Braves finished 3 with the Mets here and then 3 with the Royals here. So going into that Mets series, for the Braves or the Mets to be more than 3 games up is probably unlikely. I'm guessing when that series starts, it's going to be within a 3-game window, one side or the other. So I think it's going to come down to that series. And can the Braves take care of business here at home against their longtime rival? If they can, then obviously you like the Braves' chances. Now, finishing with Kansas City is no picnic. But again, it's another series at home. As I said, the Braves' schedule down the stretch is pretty favorable. And if they can just win here at home, they should be good the rest of the way.
Brandon, 3rd and home run since the break. You mentioned all the people that they don't have, and Riley and Albies, Acuna Jr. How have they been able to do this? This seems like the guys that are supposed to be hitting them are hitting them, but they weren't hitting them for a long time. So how have they turned this around?
Yeah, because Marcell Ozuna has been the lone constant from the beginning of the season. He has been hitting from day one, and you mentioned his chances at a Triple Crown, which it's a long shot now because he's 7 homers behind Shohei Ohtani, but he does have a chance to win the RBI crown and the batting average crown, which would really be something. But now in recent weeks, and I would say even, back to the All-Star break, as you noted, other guys have come around. You mentioned how Matt Olson's OPS is up near 1,000 during that time span. Their catchers have started to hit the ball better, Travis d'Arnaud and Sean Murphy. Michael Harris, when he got back from his injury, has hit the ball well and left the yard a couple of times. So I think it's been a collective effort. But you really, if you want to key in on one guy that says, without him, where would the Braves be? That guy is Marcell Ozuna because he has done it from day one this season.
Brandon, we really appreciate you joining us today. Thanks so much. Terrific insight.
Yeah, have fun.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot.
Take care. That's Brandon Gaudin. He is the play-by-play voice of the Atlanta Braves on TV and also on Fox. So I know that you're a big fan of home field advantage. The Braves, this is pretty remarkable. In September, in the month of September, since 2022, they're 20-7 at home. That is the best record in baseball. Every other team in baseball has lost at least 10 games at home. Going back to 2017 when Truist Park opened, only 6 teams in baseball have been better in their home parks than Atlanta. Atlanta's got 15 of 22 games left at home. And further to Brandon's point, if you look at their schedule, well, first of all, you look at the Mets schedule. 7 against the Phillies, 3 against the Brewers, 3 against the Braves. Then they've got 3 against the Jays, 3 against Washington, and 3 against Cincinnati. So they still have 7 games left against the Phillies. And that, it depends on how the Phillies are going to play that out, right? At some point, if you're the Phillies, I mean, you've already seen Bryce Harper get hit. I would think at some point, if you're the Phillies, you start.
Well, you want the best record in the National League, too, though, right?
That's exactly.
Yeah.
But Now you go down to Atlanta. Atlanta's got 3 against Kansas City, 3 against the Mets, 4 against LA. And then they've got 3 against the Jays, 4 against Cincinnati, 2 against Washington, 3 against the Miami Marlins.
Yeah, to your point, 13 of the next 17 against teams with losing records.
Yes.
The Braves have. That Mets thing you were talking about, 13 of the final 16 games are against the Phillies, the Braves, and the Brewers.
Yeah.
So the schedule is in the favor of the Braves, right?
Yeah. In terms of strength of team, now, again, it gets into, as you talked about, teams playing for home field advantage. I mean, the Brewers are pretty much done and dusted. They're going to win.
Yeah.
They're going to win that division. But, yeah, it's, I think we look at the pennant races, we look at the division races, and we go, boy, there's really not a whole hell of a lot going on. But there are some interesting matchups coming up.
Yeah, the Phillies too, right? They almost been sleepwalking through the entire season. Can
Pretty
they continue
much.
to do that and do it through the playoffs too? I would think not. So you got to make sure everybody's healthy, raring and ready
Is that
to
a
go.
thing in baseball? Do you think getting it ginned up in the final week of the season so that you hit the ground running in the playoffs?
I think it's timing and confidence. I think that's what it is, right? You don't want to lose those two things. You want to have a consistent lineup to where dudes are just not going and having to figure out where they're hitting. And, if you're facing this guy, you're going to be hitting here. No, you need your 4 or 5 main guys. That's sort of, Baum, I know with the Phillies, got to get back and get healthy and start driving in runs. Like he's a big deal for their playoff push. So, yeah, every team's got their own issues, but it is, how important is playoffs at home with the Phillies. It's real important, especially right when you own the Braves. Like, that's the teams that you could be facing early.
Yeah.
Is those teams that are fighting and clawing to try and get into the playoffs. So maybe this is what's best for the Braves this year, is to fight and claw to get in. It's like the Mets. It's like the Diamondbacks last year. It's just get in. You get a couple of pitchers hot. You get 1 or 2 of your best offensive players smoking. Who knows where you could go, right? So I think with the Braves, it's going to be very hard. When you don't have Austin, you don't have Albies. That's sort of the 2 dudes at the top of your lineup. Lefty, righty.
You already don't have Acuna Jr.
The middle of your defense, I think they are sort of used to not having Acuna Jr., but it's those
they
2
won
dudes.
Without him. That's true. They won a World Series without him. That's
just
true.
Those 2 dudes, right, that drive in runs that gives you that at bat against that really tough pitcher that can use the entire field. I mean, I'm rooting for the Braves just because I was a fan of Braves when I was growing up. I just don't know how they get this done. I know Snicker's a good manager, and on veteran teams, when they're going through it and they're not doing things, you need that veteran manager just to sometimes be swirly and want to drink and not throw things. You just need it, right? Every once in a while. And that's Snicker. So, you root for them, but can they really make a run at this thing with who they don't have? Spencer Strider, we even mentioned him.
No.
I mean, how are they going to do that, right? Their rotation with Sale and, was Max Fried and Charlie Morton and then,
Well, Ronaldo Lopez has been a real revelation for them. I mean, they would be sunk without him. He's starting for them tonight, and against the Rockies, they would be.
Well, the last couple of years they've been in cruise control with the way they've won the East and the division. They've never really had to fight and claw, and every pitch mattered down the stretch. Now it does. So maybe this will help them. Help the Diamondbacks. It's helped good teams, right? Help Texas. Had to fight and claw to get in and won the World Series. That's sort of how you have to do it sometimes. And Braves are not used to doing it this way, so we'll see. We'll just see if it can all come together. They're getting hot and doing all the right things offensively at the right time. They got lefty, righty. They got some balance there. They got some veteran dudes who know how to drive in runs, and they know how to do it against good pitching, which that matters, right? We've seen sort of the Blue Jays. I hate to making that comparison, but you see when they face the Double-A pitcher, it's 15-0. When they don't,
yeah,
it ain't 15-0. No. And I think that's the difference, right? And that's where it really shines the light on the top 5 spots in your lineup. You really need those at bats to where dudes can use the entire field. So that's maybe we made too much, and there's just not being enough races and not enough things to look at. And there's teams like the Braves who have a lot to look at.
Yeah. And it does get interesting when teams get to that point in the schedule where they're comfortable enough to start thinking of playing for home field advantage and start, okay, who do we want to face in the playoffs? Who don't we want to face in the playoffs? How can we
Yeah,
You
okay. Just say the Phillies get thumped in the second round. Say that.
Yeah.
You know they're going to – Phillies fans and people that cover baseball are going to point the finger on how they've handled the season.
Oh, yeah.
Like how they've handled
We heard
certain
Jason
players.
Stark talk about that.
Yeah, you know if it's a thing already, if they get thumped by some team they shouldn't be getting beat by, you know that's going to be the topic of conversation. So, you know, there's things like that teams that have expectations that are supposed to win all the time, you know, they have enough talent. Now it's just piecing it together and the right dude's getting hot at the right time. So I just don't think there's a front runner. Who's the best team in baseball, Jeff? There's not an obvious choice.
No, there isn't.
Heck, you can pick the Diamondbacks. Nobody could argue with that. I mean, the Diamondbacks been one of the best teams in baseball since the break.
If you're asking me, who would I make as my World Series favorite right now?
Is it?
I'd go with Houston.
That'd be a really good pick. But, if I said the Diamondbacks, you couldn't yell at me.
No.
If I said I ain't saying the Yankees. If I said the Dodgers, you can't probably argue with me. If I said the Phillies, you're saying, they could muscle.
Orioles, I might. The Orioles.
The Orioles are. What are the Orioles? Just like they're missing something.
It is.
I don't know what that something is, but they're missing something. I was just
about to say, you almost. This is really a bad second guess, but you look back now at the trade deadline and you go, maybe they should have swung a big deal. Big deal. And I don't pretend to know what that deal would be, but maybe they should have gone out and.
Or they know their organization and their team better than we do.
And they may think, you know what?
They're thinking, maybe if I make that big move, it ain't going to change nothing.
Yeah,
with what we already have, again, you know as well as I do, they're sticking computers up to all these dudes figuring out predicting the future.
Yeah.
And that's why they're not making the moves.
And they may think, are we really good enough this year to win the World Series?
And they're missing something.
Yeah. And if we're not, then maybe we just settle for getting in the playoffs. Another learning year for the young guys.
Like you can point the finger at what the Yankees are missing. Can you point the finger at what the Orioles are missing? It's hard. Yeah. When you watch them, it's hard.
Maybe another starter, but again, there was nobody out in the market that you would.
Is it? Is it another? Could be a bat. Could be another bullpen arm.
But they've also, in a funny way, and I think Buck talked about this the last time the Jays played the Orioles. Adley Rutschman hasn't had a great second half. Like there's stuff that happened that they probably couldn't predict.
Yeah, it's like when the Orioles were playing the Blue Jays with Adley. It looked like they kid gloves him. Like it was like they were massaging him through parts of the season, which is just odd that a guy that young, it's almost like we don't know everything.
And the thing I do like about Houston is I look at those guys, I look at that lineup. They have been there.
Can't teach experience.
They have been there, right?
It's just like just bear with us. Yeah. We're going to get this done. We'll be where we need to be at the end of the season. Yeah, Jeff, it is just like when they write out there. I've said this to you. When John Snyder writes out his lineup, it's like rarely he goes, we got this dude because I just talent. When you're writing out that Astro, even without Tucker, it's a gauntlet of it's quadrants and how you have to lefty, righty, and this dude could carry you for 3 weeks at a time, and so can this guy, and this guy can too, and now they're pitching, and it's like, and they got a closer.
They've got, Ronel,
a closer.
Ronel Blanco has presented them with another option.
How would their manager, what will that do when it comes playoff time? I know he's been around Dusty forever, and that's going to help tremendously, but he's making the calls now, right? He gets the final say.
I just think that I think he's when you look at what they did at the start of the year when they weren't playing well. I didn't detect any panic. I think we learned something about him, about Joe Espada during that spell. Now, maybe part of that comes from the general manager as well, because, one of the things I find really interesting with Dana Brown is, Dana Brown does his weekly radio show.
He's not afraid to talk.
He's not afraid to talk, and he is not afraid. He's not afraid to have people rip on him. He'd rather have people rip on him.
He had a grand slam when Yusei Kikuchi did. I mean, a grand slam.
He got what he needed.
Man, did he.
He got what he needed.
He needed to win the West and run into the playoffs.
Yeah. Now, it also helped.
Once you get to the playoffs, you say, man, I didn't pitch.
It also helped that the team they were. I will say this. I bet that if you gave Dana Brown truth serum, he'd say, thank God that it was the Seattle Mariners that were closest to us. And thank God that the Texas Rangers didn't,
Probably.
because if the Texas Rangers had been at all, their starting pitching had been at all healthy.
I'm not sure
would
it
have
would
been
have changed. I mean, Dana, the way he talked, when he even came on our show, it was like, we're all in, dude. Like, there's no doubt we're doing what we have to do. If we have to trade 3 dudes to the Blue Jays for you, say we'll do it.
Yeah. We've been giving you the chance to win Blue Jays tickets all season long here on Blair and Barker. All you have to do is text the correct answer to our daily baseball trivia question to 590-590. Standard message and data rates may apply. Our last question and answer was Joe Carter's World Series winning home run against the Phillies in 1993 is unforgettable. But I just have to do that. Which Jays players were on base and scored? The answer was Ricky Henderson and Paul Molitor. And today's question is to win tickets to see the Jays and Mets at the Rogers Center on September 9th. John Gibbons, by the way, the Mets bench coach, will join us in the bottom of the next hour. This player played for the Blue Jays and Mets, each for 7 seasons. His son currently pitches for a team in the AL West.
Yeah.
Again, he played for the Blue Jays and Mets, each for 7 seasons. His son currently pitches for a team in the AL West. Text the answer to 590-590 for your shot to win. See rules at sportsnet.ca/590. Standard message and data rates may apply.
Moses Alou used to always tell me that cutter give him nightmares. Dude, just nightmares.
He was awfully good.
Wait, I gave it away? I said cutter.
No, not really. No, not really.
No?
I don't think he gave it away. But yeah, it was
Filthy. I mean, he could tell you it's coming.
It was a good one.
It was filthy.
So that is for tickets to see the Jays and the Mets
That's
at
a
the
good
Rogers Center on September 9th.
Mets got 2 dudes, got 30 homers. Boy, 1 + 1's what, Jeff?
If you're going to
That's how
those
you win.
games,
Don't you say it.
make up a nice
Don't you say it.
big sign for Pete Alonso.
Don't do it, because you might be disappointed.
Big
Don't do
sign
it.
for Pete Alonso.
Boo him.
No, don't
Boo
boo
him.
him. No, big
Do
sign
it.
for Pete Alonso.
Boo him.
Welcome to Toronto,
It's
Pete
not-
Alonso.
Come on.
Standing when Pete Alonso comes up,
Yeah.
and you can start chanting "Polar Bear, Polar Bear."
I would boo him. You got a better chance of booing him on a different team next year. Did that happen?
You take Pete Alonso in this team.
Oh, would I? Well, you could close your eyes and go Vladdy at third, and that
I'd
dude
have
at
to.
first.
I'd have to do a deeper dive into his bat path and everything, but I'm sure he would be. I'm
Or he's
sure
a
he
cleanup
would
hitter.
fit in. Yeah,
I mean, how many cleanup hitters got a nickname of Polar Bear? I mean, that's.
I don't really.
And basically has self-proclaimed himself as the greatest home run hitter ever. It's like I only know how to do one thing.
I never got the whole polar bear thing.
I'm sure it's because he's probably hairy and big. That'd be my guess. I think he goes shirtless too, which is kind of funny. Glenn Allen Hill's the only guy I knew that went shirtless. Remember Glenn Allen Hill?
I do remember Glenn Allen.
I remember him pinch hitting. I was playing first with the Brewers. He had a home run in Chicago and ran around the bases with taco meat hanging out with his jersey unbuttoned till his belly button. It was awesome. He was like this, like he walked off the 7th game of the World Series. This guy game 30.
He was something else.
It was
He was
awesome.
something else. You know who else is
Tremendous.
something else? Jeff Passan is
I'll let
something
you
else.
down.
He's ESPN's MLB insider. He'll join us next. And Gibby. Passan and Gibby. What a combo. It's Blair and Barker on Sportsnet 590 The Fan and Sportsnet. All right, welcome back to Blair and Barker. The Blue Jays have today off. They'll start a 3-game series against the Atlanta Braves tomorrow in Atlanta at Truist Park. The pitching matchups: Kevin Gossman against Max Fried, Jose Brios against Spencer Schwellenbach, and Yariel Rodriguez against Chris Sale is the Sunday matchup. We talked a little earlier about Yariel Rodriguez. What exactly, and you talked about pitch efficiency is the thing you're looking for. I had a couple of people ask me, Describe quickly pitch efficiency.
Strike one, having quick action. That's what I'm talking about. Like if you're a starting pitcher, you heard Bowden Francis talk about that. Like you learn from your mistakes, right? You throw this to set up this. If you don't throw this, what do you throw next? Does he look like he has any clue about how to do that?
Yeah. No.
That I think is the thing that he's going through, and I do think there is some urgency with that. May not be behind the scenes, but with that actual what's going on, I think they need to come to a resolution with that sooner than later.
Well, the Giants, and see what I did here? The Giants and Matt Chapman came to a resolution.
Man.
Matt Chapman, thank you very much for that. Matt Chapman agreeing to a 6-year, $151 million contract extension with the Giants. The man who broke the story joins us next. He is Jeff Passan, MLB insider with ESPN. Mr. Passan, as always, we appreciate your time. So, did Scott Boras know what he was doing after all here?
Shocker of shockers. It's like the guy spends the winter getting absolutely blitzkrieged, and I don't think that he necessarily fell backward into a mine of gold. But in order for this to happen, Matt Chapman needed to perform.
Yeah.
Now the thing is, Matt Chapman tends to perform. So unless he had fallen off the cliff at 31 years old, this was going to be at least in the neighborhood of the outcome, right? Now, I think he's performed at like a 90th percentile level at this point. You may not see it looking at the offensive numbers, but you need to understand, A, it's the offensive numbers in San Francisco, a place that's notoriously hard to hit, and B, it's the offensive numbers in an environment where offensive numbers are down. So the 770 OPS, which, in the past, it's like a 770 OPS. This year, it's 20+% above league average when it's adjusted for ballpark. And so you compound that with the defense that you guys grew used to being really good there in Toronto, and all of a sudden you see how Matt Chapman can be between a 4 and 6 win player. And that's what the Giants are paying for, but I also think they paid really handsomely for it. I think paying a position player, especially like a skill position player like third base, shortstop, center field, second base, paying a guy like that into his late 30s, it can be a recipe for disaster. So I thought on the player side, it was a really good deal.
Yeah, if you're the Giants, good luck. Like they way overpaid for it. That's my opinion. And Jeff's already yelled at me because I said that earlier.
No, I didn't say that. But
yeah, that's a lot for a 770 OPS guy. $25 million a year, Jeff. Like that is astronomical. But I will say this: if you're Alex Bregman and you're seeing that, you're going, "Hey, I'm younger and I've won World Series." So where does that leave Bregman at the end of the year?
I think Bregman may now start with a 2. And I wasn't sure that it was going to get up to that point. But let's remember, guys, who's looking for a third baseman. Your Toronto Blue Jays probably looking for a third baseman. Seattle Mariners looking for a third baseman. The Houston Astros need to re-sign Alex Bregman because there is no one in that pipeline right now who's primed to take over for him at that spot. I don't know if you saw Shea Whitcomb play in there, but some of the throws were just, they were ugly. It was not great. So you've got the New York Yankees who are going to be looking for a third baseman. The New York Mets, especially if they lose Pete Alonso and can move Mark Vientos over to first base, could be looking for a third baseman. The Detroit Tigers could be looking for a third baseman. Alex Bregman is going to have his pick of the litter. And beyond, I think, the fact that he has won and that he has produced, he's a good leader. It's weird to say that about somebody who is part of this notorious cheating team, right? But I look less at Alex Bregman in 2017 and more at him in 2024 and read a story by Chandler Rome with The Athletic about how Alex Bregman urged Hunter Brown to throw a two-seam fastball and didn't just say, go throw a two-seamer, said, you need to throw a two-seamer and here's why, and laid out the explanation about why he thought it would be effective. Hunter Brown went and threw a two-seamer, and since then, over the last 3 months, has been the best pitcher in baseball.
Now
he's been doing Bowden Francis stuff for 3 months now, and so to get that from Alex Bregman on top of all the other stuff, that to me is where it goes from Chapman 6 for 150 to a higher number.
Has Alex Bregman kind of? I'm not going to say skated by because of the cheating, but has he received less fan anger than other guys as a result of that? Like, I haven't seen every game he's played at Yankee Stadium. I've seen a fair number, and it seems to me that Jose Altuve is the guy who gets most of it. Did Bregman just kind of? How did that happen?
No, I don't think he skates by.
Okay,
he just doesn't. He just doesn't bear the brunt in the same way that Altuve does.
All right,
Altuve gets it. Altuve gets it worse than everyone else combined, but that just speaks to the magnitude of how Altuve gets it, rather than others not getting it a lot.
Okay,
Bregman still does, because remember, like those two are like the last dudes left.
Mm-hmm.
Lance McCullers and Justin Verlander are around, but everyone else is gone. Gurriel, gone.
Springer.
Correa, gone. Springer, gone. Exactly. And it's a new generation of Astros now. And if Bregman leaves, like that's, Altuve is the last vestige at that point.
Jeff, how did the Yankees get creative in the ninth inning and win the World Series?
Hope to God that Luis Gil or Clark Schmidt can pitch it, because Clay Holmes, it's not working right now, and I just don't trust Tommy Kahnle to get me to a World Series. And that's not to say that Tommy Kahnle's stuff is bad. It's not. I love his changeup. His changeup is one of my favorite pitches in baseball. I just think, guys, when we get into the playoffs, it's going to be a different caliber of hitter. Like, if you look at the playoff teams this year, what do they have in common? Almost all of them. It's solid to elite offenses.
Mm-hmm.
You have a team like the Seattle Mariners that has been as good at anyone as pitching this year, not in the playoffs. The San Francisco Giants have pitched really well, not going to be in the playoffs. The St. Louis Cardinals actually have pitched really well, not going to be in the playoffs. Why? Because their offense is stink. And that, as much as anything, is the barometer for a playoff team in modern baseball, because honestly, there aren't many offenses that are good. So if you can muster being one of them that is, you stand out that much more.
So how do you think, look, obviously Clark Schmidt and Luis Gil would be the two guys. How do they do this? Like, how do you take Luis Gil and, here, kid, here's the ninth inning at Yankee Stadium. Go get him. How does Aaron Boone go about doing that?
Yeah, it surprises me a little that they're putting him back in the rotation right now and getting him stretched out when I think at very least the one that they believe is likely to succeed in that role should be pitching seventh and eighth innings.
Yeah.
And getting used to getting hot quickly, because that you're going to need that in the playoffs, especially with a bullpen without many guys you can rely on. If you're going to go deep, the likelihood is they're going to ask you to get warm in 5 minutes, in 15 pitches, if that. And that is a learned and acquired skill, as opposed to one that comes naturally to guys who, have trained themselves to just go up down instead, rather than getting hot instantaneously.
Jeff, what are the Orioles missing?
I think they're missing starting pitching. I think they're missing consistency in their bullpen, and the hitting hasn't been as good as I thought it was going to be.
Nope.
And yet here they are. And I don't know if they are the team to beat in the American League, but it would surprise me if they're not the number one seed in the American League. I think at the end of the day, it's going to be the Orioles, but I believe they were the number one seed last year as well. And we all saw how that turned out.
Yeah, Kevin and I talked about them, watching them, seeing them when they were here, watching them on TV. Listen, I understand you should be able to quantify everything, but I look at them and I do get the sense there's something
a little off.
Yeah. Maybe you know what it is. Maybe it was when they were here, we started to see Adley Rutschman kind of. It was starting to spin his wheels a little bit. Maybe that's part of it. But I look at them and there's so much talent there, and but I don't.
I'm with you, dude. They should be better than they are. And
Yeah.
the truth is, guys,
Yeah.
if the season ends today, and you ask me who are you going to pick as the American League pennant winner, what do you think the answer is?
Astros.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I wouldn't even. Honestly, I would. I'll tell you what. The Orioles wouldn't even be my second
Me
choice.
either. No.
They wouldn't even be my second choice.
I don't know if there is a B.
Yeah.
I don't.
And you know what, guys? There's a real chance that we're actually overrating the Astros because all the other 5 have so many flaws. It's like we want to go to something that is familiar and comfortable.
Yeah.
And maybe you can rationalize that because the Astros pitching, because Hunter Brown's been awesome, because Spencer Arrietty's been awesome, because Justin Verlander's back, because Framber Valdez is permanently underrated, because Ronel Blanco's been fantastic this year. That's a hell of a starting 5 to bring into a postseason. And then you get Kyle Tucker healthy, and you have Jordan Alvarez and Altuve and Bregman who've been there, and Yainer Diaz who's taken a real step forward, and Jeremy Pena who's won postseason MVP awards. And then you're like, okay, yeah, it's starting to make sense. And then you look at a bullpen that ends with Josh Hader and Scott Ryan Presley, who's closed, and Brian Abreu, who could close, and Taylor Scott, who's taken a step forward, and Seth Martinez. And it's like, yeah, all right. No, it's not just us thinking the Astros are the best. It's the Astros objectively showing at this point that they are the team to beat in the American League.
So, Jeff, I was at the restaurant the other night with my beautiful wife eating a steak, and I look up and I see Ohtani still second easily. I see Ohtani still third on the next pitch, basically standing up without a throw. I mean, he slid, but he could have stood up. I mean, it was not even close. And then I started thinking, end of the season, how will you rank what he's done in Major League history? Because of the DH, I don't know how.
Well, and because offense is down, too. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a number of mitigating factors.
Yeah. How will you rank his season, Jeff?
No one's put it to me that way, and I think it's a really good question. I am not somebody who falls for the spell of round numbers. I don't think that round numbers are any more interesting or special than crooked ones. I think if Shohei Ohtani hits 49 home runs and steals 51 bases, or hits 51 home runs and steals 47 bases, I still think it's a spectacular and unique season. And that, to me, is, I think, how I'm going to look at this. Shohei Ohtani is somebody who traffics in the unique. Anything he does, it's not just that he does it well, but it's that he does it differently than everyone else. And so I almost feel like this has been his gap year, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is the year where he gets to go out and try new things.
Yep.
And I feel like his experimentation was with running. And he wanted to see just how much he could run in this year where he had something else taken away from him. And that, to me, is ultimately what Shohei Ohtani's legacy is, guys. It's that he did things that nobody else could dream of. And he actually did them.
The only reason I asked you that question is because I can't come to what my answer will be because he's a DH. If he was playing right field or, say, center field every day, diving all over the place, making unbelievable catches, running into the fence, think he's stealing 50 bases? Probably not. That's why I asked the question. Like, I don't know what the answer is. Like, I just don't know. If you DH Mookie Betts every single day, he's not going to have tremendous numbers. Like, that's the thing, right? It's the elite offensive players. Like, if you stuck Judge in the DH hole and said, do nothing but that every day, how would the numbers look? That's why
he wouldn't have 50 steals.
Who knows? He might have more than he's got now. That's the point. Like, I just don't know how to sort of put the period on the end of the season because he's the DH. I'm not saying he's not an elite player.
Can I do it?
Yeah.
Can I do it for you?
Yeah, please.
The designated hitter has been around, Kevin, for more than 50 years, and nobody has ever come close to this.
Yeah.
And so I think if being DH made this easier, then why hasn't anyone made it look easy?
Base has never been closer either.
Oh, come on.
That's not. I'm not lying.
Jeff,
not making that up.
I actually think that's fair. I think that's reasonable, and I think that looking at the context of Ohtani doing this, if he sneaks by with 50, 51, 52 bases, as opposed to like Acuna going 40-70 last year, I think it's very attributable to the closer bases. But I would also then argue that all Shohei Ohtani is doing is taking advantage of what's put in front of him. And in the vein of what you were saying, Kevin, we've had 50 years of people who have had the opportunity to take advantage of not having to go and dive around on defense or to trot out there or to, they could sit back and rest their legs, take swings in the cages, work on sprinting in between innings when they're not out there at the plate for the 4 times they're going to be at the plate. No one's done it, dude. And when no one has done it, I think you can sometimes get stuck on the first person doing it being a negative reflection of it, as opposed to the, to me, amazingly positive thing it is that he's doing that. On top of that, the second thing I originally wanted to say is there are plenty of guys out there who, if they switched over to full-time DH, would be absolute disasters, because the rhythm of their day tends to be, I'm going to go to the plate, and then when I'm not at the plate, I'm going to be in the dugout, and then when I'm not at the dugout, I'm going to be out in the field. I think guys would get bored. I think guys would feel like they were running out of things to do. That's never the case with Ohtani. Not the case with him. He is habitually curious and interested and trying to be a different person than we've ever seen on the field, and it's incredible how often he actually achieves that.
I'm going to do something horribly hypothetical here, but let's assume he finishes with, he has this type of year offensively, and he finishes 50-50 or better than 50-50. And the Dodgers go on to win the World Series. Is there any way, and I think you might know where I'm going with this, Jeff, is there any way the equation changes about Shohei Ohtani pitching?
No.
Not at all.
Nope.
Even if it takes away from his offensive talents or his offensive numbers.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
If he comes back and stinks on the mound, that's when you have that conversation. But
Fair
I
point.
don't think preempting something because of greatness, that it seems like a very causative thing. And I don't know if we know that it's causative at this point, or frankly, if we'll ever know. But you need to exhaust that option, because that option is what Ohtani's actual ceiling is. What we're seeing this year might be his offensive ceiling, but I would take 80% of this and 50% of his ceiling as a pitcher, and it's better than this.
Yeah. No, that's I was just throwing it out there, and of course the Dodgers.
It's fair. You're not the first person to suggest this, by the way. It's a reasonable thing. Like, why screw up a good thing if you have it? And the answer is because you could have a great thing, and because we're greedy creatures.
Yeah.
I just wanted the way, the most stolen bases ever has 26. He looks awfully fresh. The only reason I brought that up is I was eating my steak and my mouth was full, and I just happened to peek up, and dude's running all over the place. He's doing his little, what they do whenever they steal bases, and then he's going to go over there and sit for 35 minutes and try to do it again. Like, that's all. And how am I going to talk about that at the end of the year? That's all.
And Kevin, you know how you talk about it, Kevin? You talk about it because during pregame, when everybody else was putzing around, Shohei Ohtani was rehabilitating a torn ulnar collateral ligament.
That's fair.
The sort of injury that, generally speaking, keeps players, both pitchers and hitters, straight up off the field for at least 6 months, and in most cases longer. And Ohtani's out there doing this offensively while doing all that. If you want to accuse him of being anything, it should be of being incredible to actually have the energy after grueling rehab and after the mental stress that comes from trying to come back from an injury that requires reconstructive surgery.
Yeah.
Jeff, really good of you to join us, my friend. Thanks so much.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks for clearing that up.
Boys, pleasure's always mine. Hey, you know what? You guys ask good questions to make me think, and I appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thank you. We
Take care,
appreciate
buddy.
that.
See
Take
ya.
care. Jeff Passan, MLB insider with ESPN. That was a good discussion.
I don't know how I feel about that. Again, I'm not saying he's not elite by no means.
But I do.
Am I not saying he's not a unicorn?
I know what
but
you're
if the
saying.
dude's playing center, running through walls, stealing homers, and then he's going out doing this kind of thing, like Acuna Jr. was special because of what he was doing in right field, chucking it and throwing people out. And I'm not saying Ohtani can't do that, but boy, it can't be we're sitting over there going, man, he's the greatest. It's the greatest season we've seen in the history of baseball. I
mean, I don't know about that. I think let's see where it ends up. But he's hitting home runs that's not an easy park to hit home runs in.
I mean, that's like the 10th best season Barry Bonds ever had. It's not lying. I'm not lying. Go look it up.
Yeah.
Look up the stats, Jeff.
Yeah. I just think that, but I also think you have to keep in mind the environment it's in. You know, Barry Bonds was doing that when there was more offense in the game. There isn't now. I mean, we talked about it. Look, we talked about it yesterday. The Jays have given up 193 home runs, more than any other team in baseball. Last year to do that, you had to give up 254 home runs. So, you know, home runs are down. Offense is down. I think if you can't look at it in a vacuum, you've got to compare what he is doing to what other guys are doing in baseball right now.
All right, his season starts in October. So there you go.
Well, that's a fair. That is absolute. We don't know. He's never been. That's absolutely a fair argument.
Starts in October.
That's absolutely a fair argument.
Should be well rested.
What are you going to do if he has a great October?
Then talk about him differently.
Okay.
Then he's a first ballot Hall of Famer already. That's how you start having a conversation.
Yeah, I mean,
that's how legends start. He starts doing things in October like he's doing in the regular season. He breathes a different air. Like that's what legends are made of.
That is true, but I think he will always be a legend just because of his skill set. The only way I will tell you this, the only way he isn't a legend, and who the hell knows how you define a legend, is if the pitching works out at all. If the pitching works out at all,
Derek Jeter a legend.
In New York, he is.
Well, there you go. New York.
Is he? I think he is. How many? He's a serial winner, dude. He's a serial winner. Yeah,
it's not his fault. The team he's on. Just put more spotlight on what he was doing as an athlete and as a baseball player.
Yeah, I'm saying he was.
Not his fault. Now the spotlight's going to be solely on Ohtani. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like it's fine and dandy to run all over the place.
Is Nolan Ryan a legend?
Yeah, absolutely.
How many World Series rings is Nolan Ryan?
It's like your numbers times two of everybody else.
I'm asking.
That's the difference.
I'm asking.
Like that's the difference. Again, this is my point. He's playing on a team that has arguably 3 Hall of Famers in a row on his team, and he's one of them.
Yeah, Barry Bonds played in a team that had Matt Williams, had Jeff Kent, who could be in the Hall of Fame.
You didn't vote for him.
No, but I said, he could have been. He could have been. So yeah, listen, I mean, it's kind of a silly argument.
It's not a silly argument.
Yeah, it's a silly argument right now because the dude's career isn't over, right? World Series. Nolan Ryan has won World Series when he finished the game. He pitched 2 1/3 innings in 1969.
How many strikeouts he got?
I'm not. I am not saying.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm not saying he's not a legend, but I'm saying this whole idea that you have to have postseason success to be a legend. Oh, it helps, but you can be without it.
Now they pay you more money than everybody else.
Tony Gwynn a legend?
You're arguably on the best team in baseball.
Tony Gwynn a legend?
Man alive.
I'm just saying.
I never called Tony Gwynn a unicorn. It matters. It matters how you speak of an individual. It matters. Like you're trying to talk yourself out of, not having him at the highest standard of everybody else. Not me. You do this as a DH. Do it in the playoffs on the best team in the National League, arguably. But if you said they are, it'd be tough to argue.
You said the Phillies were about an hour ago.
That's who I say.
And now you just say the Dodgers are the best team in the National League. Make up your mind. Make up your mind.
Yeah,
You're trying to poke holes into Shohei Ohtani's season, which is silly.
No, I'm not trying to poke holes.
Yes, you are. You're trying to denigrate his season.
No.
You're trying to say that it's something less than what we've seen.
I'm saying what he does. I'm saying if you stuck elite athletes and the DH hole, you would be getting years like he's got.
Think Vladdy could do it?
No, Vladdy's a different offensive player. He's not left-handed either. So nice try, bud.
Think Juan Soto could do it?
No, Juan Soto's not fast. This is what I said. You give him Juan Soto to be your best hitter or your best player. Big difference.
So
That's why the Chapman thing's silly.
Now you're talking down.
Good.
Now you're talking down Shohei Ohtani because he's fast. So you're holding that against him.
All right. So they get thumped in the first round, and Ohtani's 0 for 15. It's just like last year when they got thumped and Betts and Freeman stunk. We talk about Betts and Freeman stinking. They have really good regular season. They make all this money to get the playoffs, and then when the lights are the brightest, they don't show up. Yeah, we talk about them differently. Sorry about your luck. You're on the best team, the most expensive team, the team with the most history in the National League. Sorry about your luck. We're going to talk about you that way.
Silly.
Well,
John Gibbons is bench coach with the New York Mets.
But
John Gibbons is bench coach with the New York Mets. He'll join us next. It's Blair and Barker on Sportsnet 590 The Fan and Sportsnet. All right, welcome back to Blair and Barker on Sportsnet 590 The Fan and Sportsnet. We are just watching the Giants and the Diamondbacks, and we just had a Rogers pitching for the Giants. We just had a strike call that we just both looked at each other. The pitch was never in the zone from the moment it left his hand to the moment the catcher caught it about a foot outside.
I've never said that umpires are the main reason why hitting's down, but they got a little something to do with it.
Wow.
The umpiring's never been worse.
Anyhow.
It's never been worse.
Hey, let's bring in John Gibbons. Speaking of umpires.
Somebody agrees with me.
He is the bench coach for the New York Mets. How you doing, Gibby? You miss us?
Gibby.
JB and Bark, man. How are you guys?
I was going to say we're still fooling them, but let's see. There's half an hour left, so this thing could go. This thing could go anyway.
Hey, I'm the one tricking them right here.
Well, no, you've done a great job. You got a team within a game of the playoffs. There's nothing wrong with that.
Hey, JB, let me tell you, the best job in the world is bench coach. You just sit. Actually, the bench coach used to do all the organizing and plan spring training, do all that stuff. Remember those days?
Yep.
Now they don't even do that. Actually, our guy that does all that, Danny Barnes. Remember our relief pitcher, Danny Barnes?
Yes, I do.
He does that for us. So I'm not sure what I do, but I just don't. I keep that quiet a little bit.
Yeah, well, that's okay. I mean, I'm sure you're there. You're there to provide wisdom and and a soft shoulder, which you're good at.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's right. That's right. Cry on my shoulder.
Gibby,
I get to go home after. I go home when the game's over now, man. I don't have to answer any questions.
That's great.
Well, there's a reason why you guys are in the hunt, and I think it starts with the shortstop. Why has Lindor been so good this year?
Hey, Bark, I tell you what, he's been unbelievable. I look back on like Donaldson's year. When he won the MVP in 15.
Yeah.
This is just like it. And he had a terrible April, and he was getting booed here at home, and then things just changed. And I'd seen him enough in Cleveland. Knew he was a good player, but I didn't know he was this good. But he just doesn't miss. It's one of those years for him. And the thing is too. Obviously he's playing shortstop. He plays every inning, every day. He's out early working on things. I mean, it's amazing to watch. Especially for a guy that. He's locked up on a long-term deal. He doesn't need to do those things, but he got a lot of pride, and he goes out there. And, I guess every year Ohtani's going to be, the front runner, going to be in the talk about the MVP. But this guy's right there, and the fact that he plays the hardest position on the field, gosh, he's got my vote.
Yeah, you mentioned the booing, Gibby, in New York. Now that you've been up close and personal with that, and a guy's actually turned it around midseason and had the season that Lindor's had, how does he get through that? Like, I just don't know how. I've never been through anything like that. I've never, had the expectations that a guy like Lindor, because of the money he's being paid and where he's playing. But I would think that takes a special human mentally to just get past that and believe in yourself. You've seen it up close and personal. How's he gotten through that?
Yeah, Bark, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that other than, he's got tremendous confidence. He's got a great smile. So I think when things go bad, he kills them with all that big old smile, that kind of softens everything. But, New York Nats, they boo everything. We've had many games, even when we're playing good, that a relief pitcher will come in and, he'll give it up and they'll be booing. And so that's just part of it. But they were out there pretty good there in that first month. And, he just stuck his chest out and showed up every day. That's what I talked about. He plays every day. It would have been easy for him, to take a day or two off here or there to run away from that. And now he took it all head on, man. It's pretty amazing. But, this kid, I tell you what, he's as good as hitters I've been around. I mean, it's, I don't think it's just that kind of year he's having. He's had a tremendous career, and I'm watching firsthand, just like I watched with Donaldson.
Yeah, you've been around some good ones. That says a lot.
Yeah. Hey, John. Obviously, there's a lot of time between your stints with the New York Mets as a guy in the '80s, and then now. But how has the baseball environment in New York changed over the years, or has it?
You mean like as part of that, in the '80s when they had those really good teams? Are we talking about then compared to now? And,
yeah.
The style of game or the way baseball
just in general, like
group?
what it meant to be a Met back then and what it means to be a Met now.
Yeah, Bart. I got a little time in JB up, with the Mets in the mid '80s when they were kind of in their heyday, and everybody's still living off that team around here. It's amazing. But it was a wild bunch. It was a different group, but they of course won it all in '86 and ran away with everything. And they at this town, or at least Mets fans, have been starving for something like that. Even though they went to the World Series in '15, all you still hear about is the '86 Mets.
Yep.
And so when things start turning, the optimism, like what we're doing right now, we got a chance to get in and maybe do something. It's like it comes to life again. It's not all that ragging and booing and all the time. It's like, hey, this is a team we can pull behind, and because it's really a crazy place. When they got a team they really like. And I always thought the Mets fans were tougher than Yankee fans. And so you got to give them something good, or they'll eat you alive. But I don't know if the enthusiasm for this team is what it was for that team back in the '80s. Maybe because all the personalities and the I guess I could say screw ups and all that. They really identified with that group. So this I think they're just really waiting on this team here, to see if we're legit, before they go all out, I guess.
Maybe you just answered this, but I know 2015, the identity of the team was thumpers. In the middle of the order, it was hard to get through them. You get through them one time, but it's hard to do it a couple of times. Now the Blue Jays are trying to run prevent. That's their identity. What's the identity of the Mets in 2024?
Well, Bark, when you look at our season, early on we pitched really well, and that was kind of, we liked our pitching staff, but it wasn't necessarily a shutdown pitching staff, right? We thought we were going to have to score. And in the first month or so, we weren't hitting at all. It's a big old park here, in that time of year, the ball doesn't go anywhere. But it wasn't until we started hitting, that we really started taking off. And we got a good lineup. We really do. 1 through 9. We're as good as anybody. There's really no weaknesses in there. But that's kind of the key for us. When we swing it, we're really, really good. And we got a solid bullpen. The game is so different now. With the amount the starters throw, and then the bullpen, how much they're used. And so we win when we slug it out. It's kind of similar to that teams you were talking about back when I was up in Toronto, and that's kind of the brand of baseball, in general anyway. But I will tell you that the game is different with all the analytics and the you name it, with the rule changes and things like that. But it's still a great game of baseball.
Absolutely. Gibby, now that you got some free time because you're the bench coaches of the Mets, do you ever look at the schedule? I know I was looking at the schedule today because I knew you were coming on and how close you guys are. And, I know you talk about the Braves who are right there with you and the bad teams that they're facing. And then you look at your guys' schedule and, the last 13 out of 16, you're facing the Phillies, the Braves, and the Brewers. Not the easiest to schedule. Do you or your coaching staff ever sit around and go, this week we're facing these two teams. We got to get hungry, frisky against these two teams. Maybe we go 6-1. And then the next 2 weeks we got these two. Do you ever do that as an organization or as a coaching staff?
Oh yeah, coaches, we do that all the time, and now they have all that information, strength of schedule, all that crap, so they throw it at you anyway. Yeah, that's you got to you start when the season's starting to wind down, naturally look at who you're playing, and then of course we're going neck and neck right now with the Braves, and we're looking at what they're doing. At least I do anyway. I mean, I've always been that way because it's we were kind of iffy there for a while at the beginning of the year. That even the owner was talking about selling players and things like that. And then things just turned. They were playing really good baseball. So now the excitement's back. And it's kind of like, all right, boys, we got 3 weeks to go. What's going to happen here? And Atlanta's been decimated by injuries, but they're hanging in there. And we have 3 games left with them, but there's a lot of good baseball you need to play before that. So, but it should be a great finish around here, I would think.
Yeah, we were just watching the Diamondbacks in San Francisco, and we was watching an umpire call strike 3 that was like 9 inches off the plate away, and I think the players are so used to it they just turn around and walk away. Now, I don't have any fun always talking about umpires on this show. I try to stay away from that because I'm not a big fan. My number with Gibby, I had one in big numbers, and when you have one in big numbers, strike zone gets area code. Like it ain't, outer third, inner third. It's area code. So I'm sort of used to that.
It's outer county.
Absolutely. So, Gibby, have you noticed bigger strike zones, smaller strike zones, umpires any different than they were, say, 10, 12 years ago?
Well, I tell you what, I think the difference is, depends on whether they're young umpires or the guys that have been around a while. The guys that have been around, they have bigger zones. I mean, they like that game moving faster, and they have a tendency. This is just, I don't no evidence of this, but it just sure looks like. And then those guys that come up through the minor leagues, they kind of train them on all that, all the whatever they got down there. They're always tighter, it seems anyway. But so you always know now. You get all the info before a game, who's behind the home plate. And, they got all these charts of hot zones for these guys, and what do they call balls out of the strike zone, in, out, down, what have you. And not that I don't know if that does any good for you, but at least kind of gives you an idea. But it's always the older umpires that have the bigger strike zone. And but I tell you what, I have a hard time telling, at least from the dugout, whether it's a ball or a strike, because with the way the style of catching now, where everybody drops their glove and yanks it. Yeah, I mean, it's like it doesn't even look good, So I mean, they're basically everybody's trying to trick umpires is the name of the game back there, and but I can't tell you most of the time whether it's a ball or strike anyway, unless until you look at it afterwards.
Yeah, I've often wondered how some of those. Now I know Joe West was around for a while, but I've often wondered how some of those other guys, like Frank Pulley or those guys, would have handled umpire
Don't do that again.
catchers moving their gloves around to steal strikes. Yeah,
JB, man, they used to say all the time, hey, you got no chance of getting that pitch if you yank your glove like that. But that's kind of what's funny when they set up their glove and then they drop it all the way to the ground and then they catch underneath it, I guess the way they describe it. Russell Martin, Russell always used to drop his glove and naturally do that, and he was the only one I ever seen, because I used to think, damn, Russell, he drops that glove. I'm surprised he doesn't get handcuffed more,
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like that's the craze in all of baseball to the extreme. Russell made it look so much better than a lot of these guys do now. But yeah, that's kind of and I guess the information says they get 3, 4, maybe 5 pitches extra a game. That's why they do it. That's why they encourage it. I'm not sure.
Last question before we let you run. I did want to ask you about Pete Alonso, Gibby. You've been around some guys who could hit. You've managed teams full of guys who could hit. What makes Pete Alonso so special as a power hitter?
He's just so dang strong, man. We played a big ballpark here too, and he makes that look strong. And it's a big year for him, free agent year. And I mean, there's been a number of times where you could tell he's pressing a little bit, naturally. But he's always been and even before I even knew him and I'd watch him, he was always more of a hitter. He always wanted to be a hitter, not just a slugger, right? Mm-hmm. And he wasn't afraid to, like the great RBI guys, shoot the ball the other way, take a cheap single for an RBI. And I think that's what separates him, instead of these guys now. I mean, there's so many guys that just, turn it loose. And, who were we just playing the other day? Some guy had like 25 home runs and 50 RBIs, So he wasn't getting much. Other than that, he wasn't getting anything else, but he's always been a big run producer, which is, very important. And we got after a slow start, he's picked it up, and he's big for us. But like I said, we got a lot of good hitters in our lineup that have helped carry us to get to this point. Now we'll see what we got left.
Yeah. We're happy for you, buddy.
We are, man. It's good to see you.
Yeah.
It's good to see you having fun. I've caught a couple of games on TV. We appreciate you doing this. We look forward to seeing you in Toronto.
Thanks, Gibby. That's cool stuff. Thank you.
All right, boys. Thank you, guys. Miss you guys up there.
Yeah,
take care.
See you.
See you. It's John Gibbons,
pretty cool.
Coach of the New York.
Man, they get a lot of information. Holy moly. Like, it is like, how do you hit, Jeff? Like, you go up there thinking all this stuff. It's dude going to call this. You ain't going to call that. I ain't going to swing at this. And then on top of it, you got them khakis giving you the break and the spin and the.
This sounds really. This probably sounds really simplistic. Sounds really simplistic, but take it and keep it in mind. It's coming from somebody who's never hit in a game. I think part of the thing is you got to know yourself. Like, you got to know what you can. This is why I keep thinking. I always think about Josh Donaldson when I think of hitting, but I get back to him talking about the eyewash aspect of the 11 pitch at bat. And boy, you had a good at bat. You fouled off 6 pitches. You were battling.
You're out.
Well, yeah, but except the first pitch I fouled off was the one I should have done damage. I think you need to know yourself as a hitter so that you realize when you've had a good at bat and what a good at bat means to you.
I'm not sure organizations allow you to do that anymore. Be yourself. Be who you are. Know yourself. There's 19 hitting coaches for the Blue Jays. How the hell are you supposed to know yourself?
I also wonder, Kevin. I also wonder if
I think that's gone away.
If the fact that you don't get as much time in the minor leagues also has something to do with
learning
that.
on the fly. You're being taught at the big league level how to be a big leaguer. I mean,
maybe that is something.
At bats in the minor leagues mattered when I played. Now it matters none. Like, they don't even care to pitch you. Like, look at Ricky Tiedemann. They basically put him in bubble wrap.
But let's also look at when you played. Look at the pitchers you were facing in AAA.
Older, add and subtract, been around forever.
But guys who were still like, it's not like it is now.
No,
it's not like it is now
where
there's a big, there's such a big gap between. Everybody says now there's such a big gap between Major League pitching and AAA pitching.
Yeah.
And
I think that's organizations don't care as much, don't want to throw as much money probably in their minor league system.
But they don't want
They're
to waste
trying to
guys
shrink it. Absolutely. They're trying to shrink it.
Yeah.
It's not about as many innings. It's not about experience. They're spending all that money on all your analytics departments at the big league level. You're expecting the coaches at the big league level to teach them how to throw strike one, be unpredictable when they should already know that, right? How do you know unless you've been through it? That's the point. Listening to Gibby talk about all that.
That's one of the reasons.
All that information, man.
That's one of the reasons I think coaching staffs are so big now, because you do have a lot of teaching that goes on at the major league level, right? Think about it. It used to be your first base coach, third base coach, hitting coach, pitching coach, bullpen coach, manager.
Yeah.
And usually the first base coach or the third base coach was your base running guy or your infield guy for the most part. And that's it. And that was, a lot of it was strategy and a lot of it was just maintaining guys. But God, now you've got, we roll our eyes at the number of hitting coaches, but think about what those guys are being asked to do now. Think about what the hitting coaches are being asked to do. You look at this Jays team. They got a bunch of guys who are trying to learn stuff. I mean, if you just had one hitting coach, I'd be like, beside himself.
Like it should be. That's what I said. Like you had another guy hovering who was doing the soft tossing and would listen. Right, players normally at the big league level already know this stuff, and they use the hitting coach as a person that they want to go vent to. How dare you tell me to do that? You know that wasn't going to work, and then just somebody to yell at and just visibly get it out with you just had enough, and he's sort of that guy. Now who you doing it to? Yeah. Who am I picking to yell at? I can't yell at all of you. It ain't all of your fault. It's like,
I'm gonna yell
dang it, I just yell, be yelling. It's like, dang it. I just listen to Gibby there, and you can hear it in Gibby's voice. Gibby is trying to be in the middle.
Yeah. Well,
And it's information overload. It's like, man alive, don't forget. You got to get it down, be athletic, see the ball. You forget that?
see, I think
Man alive. No wonder these dudes can't hit.
I think Gibby would be the perfect guy to have as a bench coach in New York.
Yeah.
He would.
Not, the moment's never going to be too big for him. You yell, you just turn around and go, yeah, it's some country. You live on that side of the mountain.
No,
like, he's hard not to like.
And
man.
he is. It was interesting, and I heard this from other people. It's the reason I asked him this question, because I covered the Subway World Series when it was the Yankees and the Mets.
Yeah.
And you know all anybody was talking about in the Subway World Series? Well, the whole Roger Clemens and Mike Piazza thing took over. But you know what everybody's talking about going into that World Series? The Mets of the 80s. Like the way, the love for that team, for the team that came back and beat the Boston Red Sox.
You're always
and all
trying
that
to
stuff.
compare one team to the past teams, right?
You're never going to.
Well, we do
Gibby's
that with
right.
the Blue Jays in 2015. We want the same lineup right now, right?
Yeah.
The
Man,
Mets,
can
you imagine?
The Mets will never get rid of that. The
Yeah,
Mets
hard.
win a World
Unless they win a World Series.
I'll
And
tell
then
you
they'll
what,
be talking about that team that won the World Series, right? That's how it
Exactly.
works, yeah.
even if they win a World Series this year, you know
Yeah.
what the question's going to be? How do you compare this team to that team?
Well,
Now,
that's the way it is.
I mean,
That's
and, you know,
sports. That's
and-
the beauty of
And
sports.
Gibby's right. You look at the personalities in that team. They had Howard Johnson. They had Doc Gooden. They had Strawberry. I mean, Keith Hernandez.
Strawberry, boy, that was tremendous.
Davy Johnson. They were that whole team was just there wasn't a quote unquote Gibby told the story. There wasn't a quote unquote normal guy in that team.
No.
There was somebody had always had something going on.
Yeah.
And that every New York team, every Mets team is going to get compared to that team.
That's why I brought up the identity thing, right? You got to have a little weirdness to you. Like the Blue Jays in 2015, right? You remember that, like, the last 3 months of the season, did they ever throw a lefty? Never. Like, never against the Blue Jays. How dare you, dude? You were getting destroyed. Remember, like, there'd be teams coming in there saying, this lefty was supposed to pitch, but he ain't pitching.
Yeah.
Like, remember that? That was the identity, right? That was a no-no.
Yeah.
You're getting hammered. You might work through them one time, but you ain't doing that. And they had an identity. Now it's, like, hard to find those, right?
One of the things I remember Alex Anthopoulos talking about those teams one time was how the mark of a really good team is what it makes the other team do, and how teams would come in to face the Blue Jays, and they would change a whole bunch of stuff.
Absolutely.
They would change a whole bunch of stuff.
Change
because of that
anything to
team.
face the Blue Jays now?
Not really.
Don't pitch the lefty when it matters. Okay.
Which just makes Vladdy's year even more remarkable.
Other than April May.
John Schneider, the manager
Good
of the
try,
Blue
though.
Jays, the new manager of the Blue Jays,
That's good. That was a good show, Jeff.
current manager of the
Thanks
Blue
for
Jays.
showing up
John.
today. I appreciate you.
Mark Boffo, our producer, did yeoman's work. He did a good job.
today.
It was a good
Way
show
to go,
today.
buddy.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, yeah.
Bam. Couldn't said it better myself.
We will be back tomorrow,
If they let us.
if they let us, from 4 to 6 Eastern
kind
on
of rating
Sportsnet
do you get on the
590.
show here?
Have a great day.